Hi everybody, it's Sarah Cray with Let's Make Art and I teach watercolor, and this week we are doing the Shards project. That's Keenan, he's our cameraman. He'll be telling me where to look and ask questions along the way. Fun fact, we already filmed this part and he forgot to turn on the mics.
Oh,
so we're doing it again.
Wow. I see. Okay.
We're going to be doing this project in 3 steps. So our very first step, we are going to tape using our washi tape. Our second step, we're going to paint. And our third step, we're going to play, my friends.
Woo -woo.
Just a lot of fun. In this project, I'm going to go over 4 different watercolor techniques. So we're going to be playing with salt, so if you have some sea salt handy, I would grab that. We're going to be doing even washes. We are going to be doing gradient washes, and we are going to do some wet on wet. So this is a great project to familiarize yourself with watercolor, play with it. I know that sometimes we look at a simple project and we think like, why? And that's because it's fun. It's just fun to like sit down and not have this crazy expectation that you need like a fully painted dog at the end of it or a gift for something. Like, you know what I mean? Like, just play. I just want to remind you guys to play. That's the point of this. So also to show you guys how great washi tape is with watercolor. So let's go over our colors. Our very first color for this project is Tahoe Blue. Our second color is fuchsia. Oh, that wasn't enough color. Fuchsia. Our third color is dandelion yellow. And our last color is black. And you can see in our example here that we do a lot of mixing and toning down and desaturating to get these hues. But you guys can absolutely make this project your own. And before we get started, I wanted to show you, I kind of did a couple of versions of this project because I just wanted to show you different ways that you can utilize this. So your bonus item in the October subscription box is this awesome floral palette.
Cute.
And then also washi tape. Now you should have 2 rolls and they should be different sizes. Everybody's is going to be different from each other in terms of size and probably design. So I'm going to ask you to use either the smaller of the sizes that you have. So you should have 2 different sizes. Just use the smaller one. And I just want to show you really quick. This is our project here, but I also painted, are we on overhead?
Yes, we are.
This one. So this was kind of just playing with like color transitions. So this could be a fun one to do. It actually kind of reminded me of a spider web a little bit.
Oh, totally.
But
color wheel spider web.
Yeah, like a color wheel spider web. If you just want to like swatch out colors, if you have a new color set or something, this could be a really fun way to do that. Also, if you want to practice color mixing, because I think I only used 3 colors for this project. And then another one is kind of like a stained glass painting. So I used the really thin tape on this. And I kind of, if you can see, it's a vase, and I did like pink and green to make it look like florals, like a bouquet.
Wow.
And so there's the wall and there's the floor. So if this is something that you want to go for, maybe the color wheel, or maybe it's just playing with the different techniques like we're going to do today, I just want to show you all the options. So make this your own, really have fun with it, let yourself experiment, because there are so many different things that you can do with tape. Okay?
Okay.
Now let's paint. So washi tape is
tricky to find the end of.
Tricky to find the end of, tricky to pronounce. I'm sorry if I'm saying it wrong. I used to say washi, and then people are like, no, it's washi. And I'm like, I don't believe you, but I'm pretty sure it is. And you're just going to start making lines across your paper, okay? And I'm just ripping them off. Now, when you're taping your edges, I'm just going to do random shapes. I'm going to try and stay in like maybe more triangle shapes. I also just want you to pay attention to where the ends are, because you can kind of see, seeing if there's an example here, maybe right there. Do you see how that goes in? Mm-hmm. That's because the corner of my tape was sticking out. So like just make sure if you don't want those little corners that you're ripping the tape off before it sticks out. You know what I mean?
Check.
Okay. And again, I'm not telling you where to place your tape because it's up to you. And I want all of ours to be different. And I just want us to have a good time and play. You can do as much or as little as you want. Oh, I didn't go over our brushes. We're using our round 6 and round 2 brushes, our go-to brushes. So if you are going to paint a lot of projects with us, I would suggest getting those brushes because you can paint like almost every project with those.
We have a couple different brands you can choose from too.
Yeah, and both are great. So we have the Princeton Heritage Series, which is a great quality brush. We also have our own like classic series from Let's Make Art. Those are great brushes as well. You can't go wrong with either of them. So if you need a new brush, maybe look at those. Also, I want to say that between brands, sometimes the rounds aren't always like the same size. Think of it kind of like women's jeans or just clothing sizing in general. It's like, yeah, I'm a size whatever in this brand, and then I'm a completely different size in another brand. Sometimes that's how paintbrushes are.
Like Nikes, they run a little small for me.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm.
Did you just want to say that?
I mean, I wear a size 12 in Nikes, if anyone's curious. And then, you know, other shoes, 10.5, 11. Converse, big fan.
That's great, Keenan.
Yeah.
One thing that I want to point out as you're making your taped areas is I'm trying not to do so many like repetitive shapes. It's really easy for us to make the same lines. If I want to make it random, I'm really making sure that like this shape is not replicated right here, even though it like easily could have been, you know? And really switch up the size of these spacings. Do some that are really tiny, some that are pretty big, like play with it.
When you start painting, do you want to scoot your padded paper down a little bit?
Yeah, I can do that.
Please.
Oh, that corner came up, so I'm just going to push it. Okay.
This tape makes me think of like a Hawaiian shirt a dad would wear at Christmas.
Totally. Or on a trip to Hawaii.
Well, that too.
Okay, this is looking good, but these 3 triangles for me, well, that's not a triangle, but they're kind of really all similar sized, so I'm gonna like mess that up. Okay. And then if you were to try and do something like this, I just started from the middle and made my way out and then did it across, similar to you would just like even drawing a spider web. And then this one, I just kind of did a rough like vase, floor, and then like area where there would be like florals, and then just did the directions within that, okay?
Okay.
Okay.
That florals one, that was the first one you showed me like
a
month and a half to 17 months ago.
Yes.
And I was like, that is amazing and extremely complicated. I was so confused.
It actually isn't that bad to do. So I really think that you guys can handle that, but I decided to maybe utilize this project as a way to do different watercolor techniques instead of having like a, you know what I mean, like a totally finished project. But that's, I mean, this is why I think washi tape is so cool, because you can totally do that stained glass feel and effect with it. But I do think that the really thin tape works best for that effect. If you did not get the really thin washi tape in your box, which is possible because everybody got different sizes and thicknesses, you can buy this like from any craft store. So I would suggest using the thinner one for the stained glass effect. Okay, that was step 1. We didn't do the oath, Keenan.
Today's not a great day, apparently. Luckily, we can do the oath.
We can do the oath right now.
Okay.
And pretend that this was kind of like our outline.
Yeah.
We did this on purpose, actually.
We planned this.
We planned this.
Ignore the fact that we brought this up to you.
We're professionals. We have been doing this for over 2 years. We know.
I haven't. I'm still new.
I should have known. Okay, raise your right hand and repeat after me. I promise to be kind to myself.
I promise to be kind to myself.
I promise not to compare my work.
I promise not to compare my work.
And I promise to have fun.
And I promise to have fun.
Thank you. Now we are ready to put that paint to paper. And this project is really great because it's not about comparing at all. It's really just about you guys having fun. And I think these projects are the most freeing. So grab your favorite snack, put on a jam.
I have a Reese's Fast Break.
My favorite candy bar. Just kidding, it's not. It's not at all.
Thanks for clarifying.
Okay, so let's get started. Where you want to put salt, where you want to put these different techniques that we're going to go over, completely up to you. Also, that was Oscar who just turned on. He is our, wait, I remember it starts with the C.
Correct.
He is our compressor.
That is it.
He just likes to join in on the fun, so, you know.
You're basically an HVAC technician at this point.
Listen, I heard that. I'm like, that's a compressor. Okay, so I'm going to start with this navy-ish color. And I'm going to mix my Tahoe blue with a little bit of black to get a nice dark blue color. And we do know that Halloween is coming up, so you could actually turn this into like a spider web project.
That would be a lot of fun.
It would be. Okay, sorry.
You could paint candy corn inside the glass shards.
Yes. Keenan.
I love candy corn.
Do you really?
Yes.
Oh.
How dare you?
How dare you? Leave, sir. No, I'm just kidding. Okay, so this one we're going to do a gradient, which means it goes from dark to light or is a value change. Value is all about the lightness and darkness of a color and not necessarily about the color itself. So if I'm going to start with this dark color, I'm going to put that down, and you can overlap the tape. This is going to be my darkest value, and then I'm going to grab a little bit of water and put more water in there. And water acts similar to a white paint in watercolor. So if we want a lighter color of something, instead of mixing the paint color with white, we just grab more water. The water then makes the paint more transparent, which makes the white of the paper show through more, which is why it turns a lighter value. And I'm just going to work my way down, make it nice and smooth.
That's a really fun shape, too.
Yeah, that's a good one. It kind of reminds me of mountains or something. So that is a color transition, and this is a pretty extreme transition because it goes from really dark to really light. There's nothing wrong with that. That's great practice, but being able to understand values and transitioning with values is super important when you're trying to create form. So if that's something you struggle with, I highly suggest practicing your values.
Okay, I have an image in my head.
Okay.
What if you did this like on a massive piece of paper?
Yeah.
But did one scene.
Like?
You did like, you put the tape on in this pattern-ish, and then did a full like mountain scene, specifically in those colors, like an ocean.
Similar to like the glass to the vase.
Yes. And then just,
yeah.
I feel like that would look so cool.
That would look so cool. Listen, we're giving you lots of ideas here. This is gold.
Full of ideas today.
Just kidding.
Full of them.
Okay, so that is our gradient, our value change. Now I'm going to switch and I'm going to paint this one. And this one, let's play with some salt, okay? So I'm going to get my salt ready. Now when I'm doing these multicolored things, I try not to do the same colors right next to each other. I kind of make sure it's random. Sometimes you can't help but have it, but try and space your color choices out. Okay, so for this kind of like sagey green color, I'm gonna grab a little bit of this like navy mixture and a little bit of yellow. And then I'm gonna put a tiny bit more blue in there. I just kind of want a desaturated blue-green. So to desaturate it, I'm gonna put in some black. You can also put in some fuchsia if it's too green. I'm gonna do a little bit more blue. There we go. There we go. That's like a succulent color. So using this and my round 6, I'm just gonna paint this area. And this one I'm not gonna focus too much on a perfectly even wash or a gradient wash. I'm just gonna fill it in. And then when it's nice and wet, you don't wanna wait too long. And I'm stressed because I can't open up my salt. You're just gonna sprinkle sea salt in there. And we're gonna see what it does. Now I have noticed that salt tends to have a larger impact on darker values. So if your wash is really, really light, you might only see a soft effect. Also, salt doesn't do anything right when you drop it in. It's not like you drop it in and it moves. You drop it in, you have to let it dry. And then when it dries, that's when you have the different textures and things like that. So salt pushes the pigment away. Well, actually, I guess it kind of more sucks it up and then removes all of the pigment from around it, which is what creates these kind of like explosion looking things up here, there. I did it down here. You can try and use table salt too. I've noticed that sea salt tends to have a stronger effect, but if all you have is table salt, give it a whirl, see what it does. Okay. Gosh, these colors with this tape is like giving me ocean landscape feels.
100%.
And I'm loving it.
I can't get over that middle one.
I love it. Okay, let's keep on going. So I'm gonna do this like yellow, but I'm gonna introduce a tiny bit of fuchsia in there to make it like warm, like a, not quite orange, but a golden color. And let's practice our even wash. So when you do an even wash, you want to work fairly quickly and you're going to want to work the area back and forth. So I'm putting in my yellow. And then I'm just going to keep moving this paint back and forth across it so it's evenly dispersed across the area. And that's how you do an even wash. And by even, I mean there is no value changes like in this gradient, okay? It's one value. Okay, let's do like that peachy color next. So I'm gonna grab a little bit of fuchsia and a tiny bit of yellow and add some water to it. If you want it to have more orangey feels, like sherbet feels, add more yellow. If you want it to stay more pink, have more pink. I'm pretty good actually with this color that I got right here. And what technique haven't we done yet? Let's do wet on wet. So wet on wet means that you put on a wet surface, you put wet on a wet surface. That could either mean water first and then you drop in paint, or paint first and then you drop in water. I'm gonna do paint first and then drop in water. So there's my paint first. And then when it's nice and wet, I'm gonna take my paintbrush and just drop in water droplets. And then you're gonna move on and let that dry. And as that dries, you're gonna get blooms, which is hard edges. And that happens because the water disbursement across that area doesn't have even drying time and was not evenly dispersed. That's how you get blooms. In watercolor, I love them. I really love them. And if you're new to watercolor, you might fight them because you might think that they're bad or wrong. They're not bad or wrong. That's watercolor doing its job. And for me, I find them super interesting because there's always an element of like an accidental element involved and a surprise. And I feel like they create these really interesting textures without me having to do like very little effort, which sometimes is what I'm all about. So, oh, look at that. Look how that's drying.
I know.
So have fun with that. Embrace that. Okay, so we're just going to be repeating those things across the entire painting. Now, I wasn't planning on doing this technique, but it feels right.
The Firebird.
No,
You just had like a little buildup. I need something more.
I'm looking at the colors that I'm laying down, and I feel like this yellow feels out of place with this.
Oh.
It's too bright.
I agree.
So I'm going to tone that down by doing another wash on top of it. This is called wet on dry because my yellow is now dry, which is another amazing technique. You can use it for detail work or if you want to change tones of color. So I want to warm this up. So I'm going to take a little bit of fuchsia and a little bit of that yellow and make a color more similar to that and just paint over the yellow.
Oh, that's nice.
There we go. Oh yeah, that toned it down nicely. Okay, now I feel like this color feels better with these other colors. This one I probably could have made a little bit more pink, which it's fine, I'm gonna leave it, but when I use this color in other areas, that's what I'm gonna do. Okay, I'm gonna use that like peachy pink over here. So a little bit of fuchsia, a little bit of yellow. I'm gonna do it slightly more fuchsia than I did last time so it has more of a pinky feel.
I like the wet on dry when there's like a heavy contrast.
Yeah.
Like a dark with a bleed-proof white.
Mm-hmm. I just am trying to get like the perfect. Okay, let's try that. I'm gonna do an even wash on this one. And you guys can switch it up as you go. Even washes are a little bit harder to do over large areas with a smaller brush. So like this even wash might have been simpler because it's smaller. So it's good practice to like play with doing even washes in larger areas. And if you have larger brushes, it's a great time to use those and play with those to make sure that you're using them effectively. So like when I'm doing landscapes or skies, when I'm trying to do like smooth washes, even washes over something, that is when I will use maybe something like this or bigger. Or you can use a larger round. Okay, yeah, look at that. That is nice. That is nice and smooth. Okay, and then I'm gonna do this sage color over here. But this time, let's do the opposite wet on wet technique where we do the water first and then drop in the green.
This is exciting.
This is Keenan's favorite technique.
It really is.
I'm just gonna make sure I have some sage already mixed and ready to go.
Do you want to pull that mixing spot? Yes, thank you.
Is that better?
Yeah, thanks
Do
for
I need
knowing what I needed to say.
Do I need to pull this whole thing down or is it good?
You haven't started painting on the top, but yes, you'll need to pull it down when you do.
I'll just do it now. Okay, so this area, I'm gonna just paint a thin layer of water first. Don't do too much that it puddles. A thin layer, and then I'm gonna take this sage, I'm gonna just drop it in. And it's gonna move. And it's just gonna like do its thing. And I'm just gonna make sure that all the edges are covered because I want that clean edge when I remove that tape. But sometimes if you drop something in and it doesn't move, you can help it. You'd be like, come on, little fella, move around for me. Be a friend. You could even from here do water drops on top of that to get more wet on wet texture.
Oh, it's just such a fun technique.
It is. It really is. Okay, I'm gonna do dark blue over here, and I'm gonna grab salt again because I want to do it on a really dark value to show you guys what that looks like. So I'm mixing black in with my Tahoe. I'm painting the area. I'm gonna grab my salt. and sprinkle it. And we'll just see. You can kind of see what's happening with the salt over here. See how it's pushing out? You're getting some interesting stuff. Okay. And I'm going to do the sage color here, and let's do a gradient. So gradient, I'm going to start with my darker value, and then I'm just going to keep grabbing water and blending out to make it a lighter value. Now, when you grab water, I usually pat my brush on my paper towel before I put it to my paper, because it's really easy if you just keep on grabbing water and keep grabbing water that you end up with too much water. So really utilize that paper towel that you have hopefully next to you, or cotton towel or whatever you use. There we go. Gosh, look at how that one turned out. I love that.
I don't know. I still love
this one.
The middle one.
That middle one is so nice.
Such a good one.
Okay, I'm going to do this yellow gold color up here. And as you're painting, you can do another layer on top of something without, like, I just painted that yellow and I'm like, yeah, that's nice. I'm missing some of this warmth. While it's still wet, you don't have to wait for it to dry necessarily. While it's still wet, I can introduce that color into this. And even again, if I didn't feel like that was enough. I do want to give you a word of caution though, is if you're trying to make something darker and an area is wet and you keep layering the wet area with more and more paint to try and make it darker and it's just dispersing, wait for it to dry and then do your dark layer on top of it, and then it will stay darker. Okay. Gosh, I wasn't planning on showing this either, but I think it would be valuable, which is showing you guys how to lift up color too. Oh. So
please don't do it to the middle one.
I won't. I'll do it to this one. So let's say you lay a color down and it's dried, but it's too dark. Like the value itself is too dark and you want to lighten it. You can lighten colors in watercolor. So if I take my brush that's clean and just grab clean water and paint a section with just water. One, you can use your brush just to like lift and wipe on your paper towel, okay? Or you can get an area wet and blot it with your paper towel. You might sometimes get paper towel textures, but I think it sometimes lifts paint like more. So it depends. If you want to just do like a light lift, I would suggest using your brush. Or if it's in a small area, if you want to do a heavy lift in a large area, I would use your paper towel.
Paper towel one's also good for clouds.
Mm-hmm. And we did that in a couple tutorials. I think there was one called Barn Landscape where we did clouds using our paper towel. See that? God.
Amazing.
Watercolor. I love it. Okay. Let's do peach here, since green and yellow are right here and blue's right there. So, and of course, this is your painting, you guys. You can do whatever you want. So if you don't like these colors, feel free to make them your own. I'm gonna do a really light wash. Maybe within these even washes, you're playing with values. You know what I mean? Like maybe do a really dark value, even wash, a light value, even wash, and a medium value, even wash. So before I lifted that, that would be a medium to dark value, even wash. This is a light, even wash. You see?
Yes.
Okay. Do you see? All right. I'm going to introduce navy again down here.
Huh.
What?
Do you see what I see?
A star. Wait, how does it go? A child a child.
Listen, I don't do lyrics.
It's either star or child.
A star child.
Okay, let's do wet on wet with the dark blue. Because again, all of these techniques are going to look different on different values. So that's why I like to play with it. So I'm going to do a super dark value wash, like a lot of paint.
I think it's star. Because it's, do you hear what I hear? A child in the night or something like that. But anyway.
Maybe it's a different verse. Maybe both are right and they're different verses.
That's what I'm saying. I think they're different verses.
Okay, great.
Yes, same page.
Now I'm just going to do water drops in there. And you can see that is moving a lot. And they don't have to be, don't feel like you have to do just circles, like perfectly circles. You can like do a swoop. You know what I mean? Like play with, you can do a line. You can make these blend together a little bit. Ah, yeah, that's looking real nice. Okay.
Endless possibilities.
That's what I'm saying. Just play. I think we forget to do that. Okay. I'm gonna do peach here, and let's do a gradient. So I'm gonna start dark. Ooh, that's nice and dark. It's kind of orangey. Let's bring some pink in there. I'm just grabbing a little bit more fuchsia. There we go. Okay, and then water. And then more water. Okay. Gosh, there's so many things we're going over in this, but I think all this information is valuable, so I hope it's not overwhelming. But I want to point out composition right now. Value informs how a painting feels. Even though we're utilizing this entire sheet of paper, it's a 9x12 paper, because this edge is a light value, and this edge is a dark value, and this edge is a dark value, it feels really bare and empty down here. Doesn't it?
It does.
Even though I filled it in with paint, and it's because I used a light value there. So when you're painting things, pay attention to how the painting feels in terms of balance. If it feels heavy on one side because it's super dark on one side and super light on the other. The best way to view something compositionally is to stand it up if it dries, or take a picture or something. Look at it from far away, because you're not necessarily looking at the drawing of it or like how the form is. You're looking more of the overall thing. Do I feel that there's an implied line going one way where my eye just keeps on grabbing to one area? That's okay. You just need to know how to utilize these tools to communicate what you want to communicate to your viewer. So if it's heavy on one side, that's not a bad thing, unless you're trying to create a feeling of balance. Then maybe you're going to want to go and revisit and put in some more things on the side that feels really light. Does that make sense?
100% it makes sense.
Wonderful. So that's what I want to point out. And honestly, putting this with the light value on the edge, I think kind of maybe helped this a little bit, because now I have two edges that are light value. But I still might need to go back in here and do another wash on top of that, so it doesn't feel like this corner is just bare. Okay, I'm gonna do yellow kind of gold right here. And let's do wet on wet with that. And you don't have to switch it up every time. You can focus on one. If you want to just do all gradients, all even washes, mix it up, or just not even like care about it and just do like whatever you want, you totally can. It's your painting. So there's a wet on wet. Let's do navy, just an even wash. Oh, you see that tape corner sticking out?
Mm-hmm.
That's okay, it just won't make a super straight line. Now the other interesting thing about this light value corner that I have going on here, not only does it inform composition, but this is another example about how your painting informs you as you paint, which is, if my entire paper was white and I painted this part would stick out a lot, right? Because it's a darker value on a mostly white surface. Because most of my paper now is darker value and this is super light, it is reading too light, almost white paper, okay? Mm-hmm. So what I'm saying to you is, as you're painting, if you're trying to create a medium to light value and all of your other values around it are super, super dark, then that light value might actually read as a stronger highlight than you want. So you might have to go and tone down that really light value in order for that value to make sense with the darker values. Now, highlights are utilized for a lot of things, so if that is your intention to keep it nice and white highlight, you're doing it right. But this is a great example of when I say your painting informs you as you go. Because if I only painted this with nothing else, that would be fine. But then I put all of this other stuff and now I'm like, oh shoot, maybe I need to revisit this area. Okay, so your first go at something doesn't have to be your final go. Okay, let's do this pinky over here, pink wash. Okay. And let's do blue over here. Let's do another gradient, why not? I love this color.
I know, it's such a great color.
Painting with like navy is one of my joys. It just reminds me of life, you know?
Life.
Because it's like ocean and water and...
I see that.
You see what I'm
Absolutely.
saying? You see what you're picking up what I'm putting down?
Definitely.
Okay. I'm going to do another peachy color, but I'm going to keep it more on the orange side to match this, since these two are pink. If I do another like full strong pink, that's going to be a lot of pink in this area. But I don't want to do sage, because then that would be touching. You know what I mean?
Yes.
So I'm going to do kind of in between these colors, yellow, peach, pink. And that's reading too much yellow, which again, we can just do another layer right on top of it. I'm grabbing fuchsia. And introducing that color just right on top of it. Okay. And I'm going to do sage again. I'm calling it sage. I don't know if that's actually the correct name for it. Seems right.
It is now.
Great. And again, like if you put down a color and you're like, oh, that's too green, you can either add blue to it, or you can do, if you really want to neutralize that green to make it brown, you can do a layer of fuchsia on top. You can use its complement. So I want to show you what that looks like. So let's say I do green and I'm like, man, that's reading really, really green. I'm going to grab a little bit of fuchsia. And paint that right on, and see how it just grays that green down? Now if you do too much, it's going to turn purple, but I'm just going to keep on going. See how that feels like a neutral gray now?
Yeah.
Complementary colors, my friend, are magical.
That's nuts.
So if you're, it's super handy to know that, because let's say you painted something and you're like, oh, that's only, all I can see is green. That green is so vibrant, I need to tone that down. Add its opposite on the color wheel, a light layer on top, it will immediately tone it down. Okay. Yellow here, you think?
Yeah.
Okay.
From my professional opinion.
And honestly, like, because you guys are seeing this from a farther distance than I am, it actually, some things might be more obvious to you than they are to me, because I'm only like 8 inches or 6 inches away from it, since I'm right over it. So this is where like taking a step back from your painting, super helpful. And you guys might see things that I'm not, like, honestly able to see because I'm so close to it. That's why I suggest you taking a step back. And I'm just going to play, I'm going to just do some water drops in some of these, because these 3 were even washes and it was just feeling too much the same. You know, I needed to like mess with it.
Diversify.
Yes. And maybe this one I'll actually do a gradient. There we go, that feels better. Okay, now do you see what I'm saying with this corner too? Mm-hmm. How light it feels. It just feels disjointed from everything else.
It's very bright.
Very bright, very light value. So what I'm going to do is, I actually like that there is a super light value in there, but I think it's too big, that it's taking too much. So I'm just going to adjust, do another layer. Oh wait, that won't work.
It might work.
Well, if I do that and I remove the tape, then I'm going to have a light pink stripe. Is that a bad thing?
Well, you'll have unless, are you going to change both the spaces or just one space?
I was just going to change one space.
You don't need tape.
Okay. Well, now I have to change the whole thing. You know what I'm saying?
Or it will end up being a drastic gradient color.
What if I do light pink here and then switch to dark on the edge?
I was going to say, what if you did that orange peach around the corner edge?
Okay. Okay, okay, that's what I'm going to do.
That'll darken it up.
So this is a couple techniques happening. It's wet on dry. It's a gradient over the wet on dry. And let's throw some salt in there. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Okay.
Perfect.
Now this is going to drastically change the look of this when I remove the tape, because the tape is reading as a really dark value, and obviously it's going to be white underneath. So you want to make sure that your areas are dry. Now, when it comes to removing salt, I'm really nervous to just tell you to like swoop your page, because a lot of times it's still really wet and you don't know it, and then you can smear the entire thing. So what I sometimes do if I'm trying to remove the salt is I'll just let it dry for a long time, like more than what I'm doing here, and just knock my paper and let those dry flakes fall. Sometimes not all of them fall, sometimes some stick on the painting. I don't mind that. Okay, and then we're going to carefully remove the tape. Now there's a lot of little sections here, so try and be careful. If the area was super wet, you could get a little bit of bleeding. I will say that sometimes that used to make me angry. Like, I would just get so mad. And then one day I was just like, you know what? This paint is just doing its thing. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, you can't be mad at the tape.
I can't be mad at the paint for wanting to go through.
To grow.
To grow. To be like, no, I belong here, you know?
Yeah.
And then I think, Sarah, you're going crazy. You're personifying water and paint, but that's okay. There are a couple things that you can do if you wanted a really clean edge that you can use besides tape. One of them is masking fluid or drawing gum. Another one is if you have bleed-proof white, you can go in and kind of clean up these edges. Another thing that you can do, which as an illustrator and as someone who like creates digital reproductions of my work a lot, is I'll just clean this up in a photo editing program. So I would just like make that edge nice and clean. You know what I mean? And it's not cheating, just so you know. I don't think it is.
No, it's not.
It's easier to do, it's better for your paper to do really slow sections.
I wonder if setting a ruler along the edge and pressing a little bit into the paper would make it easier for you to get a straight line. Because I worry with bleed-proof white every single time I use it that I'm going to go into what I painted.
Yeah, maybe.
So if you designate a ruler to never be used for actually being a ruler.
You know what? I'm not good at things like that. Have you seen me with my water cups?
That's true. That is true.
We're almost done. If your painting is still wet when you're removing the tape, it's possible it could move and bleed out as well after you remove the tape. So if this was like my painting I'm doing at home, I probably would have let it dry more before I remove it. Another thing that I have done when I get like edges that I wanted to keep nice and clean is I would just move the edge line out.
Oh.
You know what I'm saying? That could work too. Look at that.
Nice.
Which triangle is your favorite, Keenan? That middle one?
Well, actually, the bottom left corner after you put that orange wash on there.
Yeah, this did some really interesting things. First of all, the salt.
I know.
And then there was kind of like these hard edges where it dried unevenly right here. Yeah.
It's those two, though.
Yeah, I would say this one and this one. This one's my favorite.
Yeah, that one's awesome.
And then here's what the salt did, too. So it's just these like explosions of texture and color. And again, they react differently. Salt reacts differently with different kinds of paint on different types of paper as well. So if you're using tube paints with different brands, the salt might work differently, might be more or less. All of those things inform it. The things that inform salt are the paints that you're using in the brand, the paper, the type of salt, and even your like environment. Like what is the area like where you're living? Is it super dry? Is it super, like, there's a lot of what's the word I'm looking for?
Variables.
Variables. So don't get frustrated if it's not working for you the same way it's working for me. It might not, and that's okay. Okay, you guys, I really hope that you had fun with this project. It's great. This is a great project to just play with, have fun, explore, try new things, maybe try different color combinations, really make it your own. You could totally even turn this into a birthday card if you painted it small, and then in like the white space, you just be like, happy birthday, or, you know,
that would be awesome.
Thinking of you. You know what I mean? Like, play with it. So I can't wait to see what you guys come up with. You can tag us on Instagram at Let's Go Make Art or hashtag Let's Make Art. We have a wonderful Facebook community that is meant just for you guys to share your work and learn from each other as well as from us. And that is called Let's Make Art Watercolor. So you have to request to join it, but then you'll get to see what everyone's making, which is super fun. And if you need any of these supplies, you can find them at letsmakeart.com. That's all I gotta say. See you next week. Bye.